In this series of programs, we're going to be going through extrication. We're going to be talking about the way cars are built, the way they're put together, the way we take them apart. We're going to look at the safety systems of the cars, what are our concerns, what are hazards to us, what are hazards to the patients. We're also going to go through techniques. On the techniques, we're going to be reviewing car on its tires, a car on its side, and a car upside down. So if we think about our wrecks, and all of our wrecks basically are going to be one of those three positions. What we're trying to do is we've introduced a card, a little task card. It's going to line us up with a couple of predetermined tasks, as well as going to show us a series of kind of how do we go through the different steps. Within these different steps, we're basically tying it all together. So when we do a car on its tires versus a car on its side, 95% of the techniques are going to be the same. We take a car upside down. Again, 95% of the techniques are going to be the same as car on its tires, car on its side. The goal behind all of this is in the training side of it. We want to make you quicker and more efficient. If you have to memorize one way to do things, we're going to be a lot smoother and a lot quicker. As we go through this training, our goal is to reduce our scene times. We're talking about reducing scene times. We're looking at overall out of service time for you when you're on scene, as well as the overall health care for the patient. The quicker we get the patient out, the better their survival rate. The quicker we get you off scene, you're ready to respond to additional calls now. When we look at a lot of departments, the average out there, we're around looking at about an hour for most extrications. With this training, we're going to be down in that 10 to 15 minute mark, and that's our goal as we go forward. All right, so we're going to talk about patient sitting in the car on its tires removal techniques, a couple different options. So traditionally, we've always come in here, brought a backboard underneath the butt cheek, rotated the patient, taken the patient out the side of the car. We're going forward, we want to talk about our choice of which way we take the patient out. Traditional, so pre-airbags, we had our head-on collision. The patient would lean forward, hit the steering wheel. Our injuries would be head, neck, and chest would be our injuries. They'd hit the steering wheel, have those injuries, and bounce back into position. We come in, take our backboard underneath butt cheek, rotate, take you out, no problem. Going forward now, as we look at our new cars, the issues we run into is our changing in patient injuries. So the car comes forward, it hits whatever it's going to hit, the airbag comes out and inflates. As the patient comes forward, comes forward first, they hit the airbag. The airbag protects the head, neck, and chest. They still have energy. So what ends up happening is then the body goes back into the seat, and then the pelvis comes forward. As the pelvis comes forward, the knees, so the issues we have, the knees hit the dash, the energy transfers back, we end up with broken pelvis, and broken femurs and broken pelvis. From there, I've got the lower spine is bouncing underneath the lower lap belt. So now I also have lower spinal injuries. So once we come forward, we have those injuries, and you bounce back into position again. We show up on scene, and this is what we're seeing. So traditionally, we show up and we want to just take a backboard underneath here. The problem we have, broken femurs, we start trying to twist the patient, pretty bad. Broken pelvis can be a fatal. If I've got a broken pelvis and I start to twist my patient, we can rack the two halves of the pelvis. As we rack those, we can cut the femoral artery, the patient can bleed out. From there, if I've got lower spine injury and we start twisting the patient, no matter how good we try to do a twist of the patient, we're always going to get movement of the spine. We get that twisting of the spine, that's how we sever the spinal cord, we end up with permanent paralysis to our patient. So, we show up in our scene, we're trying to figure out how's the patient injured. One of the quick, easy triage things that I found, we come into here, we're going to do a quick triage of the patient, and we look at the knees. So go ahead, expose the knees so you can see what we're dealing with here. If I have any injury to the knee, so I've got any bruising, any scrapes, any blood, that tells me the knees came forward and hit the dash. If I'm looking at my lower tib fibs, if I've got anything broken in here, does that tell me that they went forward? Absolutely. So if we've got any injuries, knees down to the ankles, then we're going to take our patient out the back of the car. When we come out the back of the car, we take the roof off, backboard's going to come in behind them. We're actually going to bring her straight out the back of the car, so we're not twisting the spine, we're not racking the pelvis. We come in, we do our initial assessment of the patient. I look at the knees look totally fine, lower legs are totally fine. If that's what we're looking at situational, no big deal. Take the door, backboard going underneath the butt cheek, because we're suspecting now chest, head, neck injuries. We can take her out the side. All right, so we're going to show you taking our patient out the back of the car. The main thing we're looking at when we bring our patient out the back, we're suspecting that she came forward and the knees hit the dash in the collision. So as the knees hit the dash, injuries coming back could have been broken femurs, broken pelvis, lower spine injury. With those injuries, we don't want to twist our patient and take her out the side, so we're going to come straight out the back. The goal is to keep her all in line, so we're not twisting the spine, we're not racking the pelvis, and we're not moving the femurs too much. So initially we'd have somebody would have been inside the car holding C-spine and C-collar on as we took the roof off and took the doors off and lifted our dash off the patient. Now we're ready to transition into the patient removal. So C-spine's being held from inside the car. We're going to come from in front of the patient and we're going to take C-spine from in front.
C-spine? Got it? Yep. Coming out.
Okay, C-spine's being maintained. Now we're gonna do, we've got a secondary person in here. We're gonna come into here. Back hand's gonna come in and reach a handful, is gonna grab scapula. Front hand's gonna come right across clavicle. On head's count, we're going ahead and set our patient forward about 2 feet.
All right, on my count, we're gonna set the patient forward about 2 feet. 1, 2, 3.
Patient leans forward. While the patient's leaning forward, person on the outside is gonna take our trauma scissors. We're gonna zip down the back. So we're gonna go back to crack. So what we're looking at is we're gonna be able to palp the backs, look for any injuries. We're gonna also be able to make sure we get the board into position. Our concern being, when you're sitting in the car, the back of your pants tend to bulge out a little bit. When that board comes in, we don't want that board to hook the back of the pants, because now when I go to tip you out to bring you out, the pelvis drops and the back lifts. If we can get a good visual all the way down, I can make sure when that board goes in, we clear it and the board comes all the way down and captures the full pelvis. That one, we were getting ready to bring the patient up and out, we're gonna maintain good alignment. All right, so we're back in, we've got patient. We're gonna go ahead and bring our backboard into place. So the backboard's coming in between the patient, all the way down.
Oh. There we go.
Okay, board's in position. On head's count, we're gonna bring patient back into the board.
1, 2, 3.
And rack the head right in. On the head, what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring the head all the way back tight to the board. If we try to hold the head up just a little bit perfectly, as we're moving, it's a lot easier for the head to move. If we tip the head back just a touch, we're gonna maintain good alignment. As we've got the head maintained there, we're not really too concerned about the slight hyperextension, because our main concern is the twisting side to side. So head's here. Once you're from the inside, you're gonna go ahead and take over spine take over head for a second.
Got spine.
Reposition, you're gonna go top down.
Got C-spine?
Okay, now we're gonna take our strap. The strap's gonna come up underneath the knees, and we're gonna work the strap back and forth till the strap's right at the bottom of the butt cheeks. Once the strap's in position, we're gonna take our forward hand, the hand facing the front of the car. We're gonna take and wrap it up so we're right up tight against the thighs. We're gonna have the patient's gonna give herself a hug. That way as we're bringing the patient up and out, the arms aren't reaching out and flailing. Our backhand, hand facing the back, is gonna come up here, we're gonna get into the armpit. At this point now, we're gonna start to bring the patient out, and we're gonna tip the backboard at the same time. The backboard is gonna carry about 90% of the patient's weight, and we're just sliding the patient right out the back of the car. We're gonna go ahead and have the board tip just a little bit. Start tipping right there. We can see the pelvis start to move. We've captured weight. On head's count, we're gonna go ahead and bring the board down and slide the patient all in one smooth motion.
1, 2, 3.
Right there. So we brought the patient back about 2 feet. The goal with going about 2 feet, if we're looking at our alignment, when I go 2 feet, if I take my center line, I'm gonna reach back a foot, come to center, and go forward a foot. That way we're not hyperextending and creating more injuries for ourselves. Okay, I'm gonna take over C-spine just for a second so head can reposition around the seat post.
Got it.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead on head's count. We're gonna bring our patient up another 2 feet. Call it head.
2 feet. 1, 2, 3.
Perfect. Now, throw the red strap up top. Perfect. Okay, as we're moving our patient, one of the things I always like to do too, I keep a hand on the patient somewhere. When you get a chance, you drill this back home, lay on the board, and not have anybody touching you as you're moving this. The other one, have somebody just kind of have an arm on a hand or an arm or a leg. As we're doing that, you'll feel just a lot more confident, and it keeps the patient a lot calmer as well. Okay, we've got the patient here, and we're ready. We're gonna go ahead and move the whole board. Grab the board, not the patient, the board. Okay, on head's count.
2, 3.
Perfect. Good. So we're shooting for here, we're gonna line the patient's shoulders up with the edge of the trunk deck. So at this point now, we're ready to strap our patient in. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna wrap the pelvis. Depending on what kind of pelvic wrap you've got, sometimes we can work underneath the knees and work it back and forth into position. Sometimes with some of the other brands out there, you can take and we can actually hook it into here, use the red strap, pull it through. As you pull that strap through, it'll pull the pelvic wrap into position. Then we come up and secure the pelvis. Once the pelvis is secured, we go ahead and strap our patient into the board. We can put our headbed tape on. That's where we hung the edge of the shoulders here at the edge of the trunk deck. We can tape the head down nice and easy. At this point, if our transport unit is not here, we can cover the patient up with our little foil blanket and then throw a tarp on top to keep the patient warm. As soon as our gurney rolls in, you can let go because we're going to have the heads taped down. Get it out of the way. There we go. We can just bring the gurney right in from the back. So again, at this point, we're going to say that she's strapped into the board, pelvic wrap, head's taped. Now we're just going to take an end loader right onto the gurney. Once we're on the gurney, away we go, and we're good to go. Within that, the whole movement that we're looking at, so on the patient care side of it, we never twisted our patient's spine, we never racked the pelvis, so that if we had broken femurs, we kept them all in line as we came out. From there, the other thing that we've done, both from the patient care side and our side, remember we've got airbags in the seats, in the posts, in the steering wheels, in the center. All of our movements we did with the patient, every time we moved the patient, we moved away from those dangers. For us and the patient, we moved away from them. Lifting technique, we never got down and hunkered down. Think about how do we hurt our backs. This is when we bend over, lift, and twist. When we come out the side of the car, we tend to do that a lot. This position here, the way we brought our patient out, we were in good lifting positions the whole time. As we continued out with our patient, we never had to get down on the ground to pick the gurney up off the ground onto the gurney. We never had to pick the backboard off the ground onto the gurney. We never had to set it onto the ground. So we kept ourselves in good lifting positions the whole time as well. All right, we're now going to look at car outside patient removal. We started off the car outside, we've taken the roof off, we've lifted the dash, we've freed our patient herself, we've got seat collar on the patient, C-spine is being maintained, we've brought a backboard in to support our patient, we've already done our neuro assessment ahead of time. Now the goal is when we bring her out of the car, we don't want to twist our patient. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring our patient out, keeping her on her hips and shoulders the whole time out. So now she's on the board, hips and shoulders, we haven't twisted the spine, we haven't moved the pelvis. We're going to roll away from the car. We'll move the backboard to the ground. We'll bring a second backboard. We're going to roll her onto her back using a backboard. That way we're avoiding all the twisting. Once we've done that, we'll position her back onto the gurney, strap her down for transport, and we're good to go. We're going to go ahead and show you what this looks like full speed. Okay, head's ready, patient's ready. We're going to have patient going to give herself a hug. That way we keep the arms together. If we don't have our patient give herself a hug, the arms start coming out and they're grabbing onto stuff. So arms helps contain them. Okay, call it, head.
All right, on three. 1, 2, 3.
Patient sliding out. Good. Now the patient, we're going to go ahead and tuck patient's feet back just a little bit. Okay, maintain hips and shoulders. So we're making sure patient's not moving. We're going to go ahead and we're going to roll the gurney out. Call it, head.
On three. 1, 2, 3.
Gurney's coming out. Clear the car. Turn it 90 degrees. Perfect. Okay, go to the end. Okay, grab the whole thing. You're on the whole board. Okay, on head's count, we're going to pick the board straight up. Call it, head.
1, 2, 3.
Board up, gurney out. Okay, go to the ground. Boom. Second backboard's going to come in, stay right where you're at. Grab the top of the board and the outside of the board. We're going to straighten the patient's feet back. We also want us to take, and we're going to square patient's back right up to the board. Now patient's all squared up. We're going to go ahead, and we're going to do this with just two of us moving the board. If we get more people involved, there's too much movement. Okay, on head's count, we're going to roll. Call it, head.
On three. 1, 2, 3.
Nice and easy. We're rolling our patient onto the back. Boom, patient's on the back. We can clear this board out of the way. Now we're going to square the patient up on the board, grab shoulders. Okay, on head's count, so our patient's just off center, just a touch. So on head's count, we're going to scooch her about an inch or two just to square up on the board. Call it, head.
1, 2, 3.
There we go. Now we're going to go ahead, grab the end of the board. We're going to go back up. We're going to go back onto the gurney now. Head, you got to get out of the way. There we go. Okay, call it, head.
On three. 1, 2, 3.
Patient's coming up. We're going to end right there. Perfect. So now what we've done, we've suspended the head off the end of the board. We can go ahead, we'll put our pelvic wrap on, we'll strap the patient to the board. We left the head hanging off so we can take a headbed taper down to the board. Once the headbed's taped on, she's strapped on. We'll square the board up to the gurney, and away we go. All right, so now we're at our car upside down. We're gonna talk about how we get our patient out. So when we do our techniques, when we come into the car, we stabilize the car. We're gonna release the roof so it's onto the ground. We're gonna take both fenders and both doors off the car. I've got my patient in here hanging by the seatbelt. What we're gonna do is the reason we take both doors, we're gonna bring our backboard in. It's gonna come across. We're gonna hold the patient's weight with the backboard. Once the patient's weight is held, we're gonna put a second board here down on the deck. We can release the seatbelt, release the seat back. We're gonna lower the patient face first onto the backboard. We're gonna slide the backboard out the back of the car. Once we're out the back of the car, we're going to do a double L roll. So we're going to go from patient's face onto patient's side, and then a secondary roll is going to go from patient's side onto their back. And we're going to show you that technique. A couple things on this car. Normally, we would leave the door in place because the door adds rigidity to the car. For the video shoot here, we're going to take the door off just so we've got a better angle of what we're looking at to be able to see into the car. All right, go ahead and bring the board in. Let's put the board underneath her.
Coming in.
Good. Bring this board, okay. We're laying the seat back. Excellent. Is that as far as it goes?
Yep. Board coming through. There we go.
Perfect.
Come on in.
Okay, board's going to come in.
Wait,
Let me know when we're ready for seatbelt.
Chris will guide it.
There we go. Okay, hang on a second. Okay, bring the, yep. Okay, you guys got patience weight?
Weight's captured.
Cutting the seatbelt.
Seatbelt.
Good. Okay,
Fine.
we're going to bring her, give yourself a, give yourself a hug. We're going to bring chest up just a little bit. Board's in position. Okay, bring the board down.
Okay, coming to you.
Come down, down, down. Perfect.
Okay.
Slide the board out to you.
Board through.
Okay. Let's take her forward just a skosh to square her up. Keep the board stationary.
Hey.
No, just hold the board.
Yep.
We're going to square her up on the board. Call it head.
1, 2,
Stand by.
3.
Ready? Okay,
1,
call it.
2, 3.
Perfect. Okay.
You got the end?
Yep. Okay, on head, are you in a position to be able to move? Do you need to change? Do you need to trade positions?
Trade.
Okay, go ahead and run the other side of the strut. So again, like we talked earlier with the patient on their side or coming out of the car, leaving a hand just kind of a little confidence on the patient somewhere. So what we're doing here, the main thing I'm doing back here with my hand, I got my arm kind of across the legs, a little bit of confidence so it makes them feel like they're not going to fall. Okay, on heads count, let's take the board out nice and easy.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Good. Take it again when you're ready.
Hold.
All right.
Okay, we'll get one more push and then I'll come out.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Right there, you got it. Okay, coming around.
Okay.
All right, now we've brought our patient out of the car, face down. We're gonna go ahead, we'll pull the board out till we've got a clean area that's level to work on. We're gonna put a backboard up here, make an L. We're gonna roll the patient from her face down up to her side, reposition the board. We'll go from her side onto her back. We'll put her onto the gurney. Remember, we're gonna hang the shoulders at the edge of the gurney so we can put our pelvic wrap on, our straps in, tape the head down, then we'll square the board up to the gurney, and we'll go ahead and load and transport. All right, we're gonna simulate for you real quick, show you outside the car what it would look like. If you want to practice at the station, this also works very well for us. So this is the board representing the one that goes through the car. This is our patient sitting into the car seat. We've got one extra person holding the feet. Normally the feet would be pinned into the car. We're not worried about it. For the drill, I don't want to drop our patient, so that's why I've got an extra body holding the feet. So we're representing now, this is where we're holding the patient up against the seat. The board comes in, we take tension on the board. We go ahead, we can bring the seat back up out of the way. We can cut our seat belt. Now these guys have the weight. I've got one person's holding C-spine. I'm gonna come in here, I'm gonna control the chest. We're gonna have the patient give herself a hug. We're gonna go ahead, as we start to run the chest out, the board's gonna lower, down, 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 down. Once we're down onto this board, we'll pull that board out. Now the patient's resting on this backboard. We've not twisted the spine, we've not moved the pelvis. At this point now, we're gonna go ahead and take the board out of the car and come back to where we've got a clean area to work on her. Let's go ahead, let's real quick, let's run her up to square her up on the board. So it's like we normally would. You're gonna grab pelvis.
My count, about 8 inches. 1, 2, 3.
Perfect. Okay, now we're gonna bring our second board in. We're gonna roll our patient. One of the things that we go back in the day that we were all taught in our original EMT training was to come into here for a patient like this and put a board and sandwich them and flip them. The problem that we have, our patients, this is gonna be a trauma entry, our trauma entries are always slippery. They're covered in various body fluids. If we come into here and we try to sandwich them in and just flip them, when we start to flip them, they're always gonna slide out. And it's not very controlled. So this one here, we're gonna do a double L roll, which is gonna keep our patient controlled the whole time. So we're gonna come into here, we're gonna make our L roll. This is the same type of roll that we do when we're coming out of a car on its side, so same principles. So we only have one person holding C-spine. Person holding C-spine is gonna start in an awkward position and work towards comfortable. So if you see how he's got his hands right now, this isn't gonna work, because if our patient rolls 90 degrees, where's his arms gonna be? They're not gonna be in the right spot. So we're gonna go ahead and put your arms off to the side at a 90. You're gonna grab chin and back of the head. There we go. That way, as we roll the patient 90 degrees, the arms are still in a comfortable position. On the boards, we're gonna grab high and outside, high and outside. The patient's up tight to the board. We've got an L made. We're gonna go ahead, let's go ahead on heads count. We're gonna roll the board 90 degrees, nice and easy.
1, 2, 3.
As that board comes up, as an extra body, I'm going to counterweight the edge of the board. And I'm going to come up and I'm going to put my thigh up against the patient's pelvis. So we're just going to stabilize the patient so they're not moving. Go ahead and pull this board out of the way. Okay. Up at the top, he's taking overhead for a minute so we can reposition our hands on the C-spine.
I'm good.
Perfect. Okay, you're going to control legs. I'm going to control pelvis. Up top's going to control the shoulders. On heads count, we're coming straight back to the edge of the board because we're going to put our backboard into here to make that second roll. If we start with the patient sitting up here and I put that board here, when I try to make the roll, everything's going to fall apart. So we need our patient on the edge of the board. We're not worried about spine or pelvis by moving our patient because the spine's going to move straight in line. The pelvis, we've got an unstable pelvis. Our concern are that pelvis racking. When we get ready to move, we're going to grab the bottom on the bottom butt cheek, which is basically just going to slide her straight back. So the top of the pelvis, if it is broken, it's just going to float for us, no issues. Okay, on heads count, we're going to come straight back to the edge of the board.
2, 3.
Perfect. So all I'm doing, I'm just keeping make sure the patient doesn't fall. So I'm just keeping the patient in position so we can hold arm, shoulder, and pelvis. We're going to come to the board. So again, we're going to grab high and outside. You can see where head's at. Head's hands are right off the edge, off the side. So again, when we roll, he's able to keep position of the C-spine right as we come across. Okay, call it head.
All right, 1, 2, 3.
Nice, easy control roll. Perfect. Pull that board out. Go ahead and snag us our gurney. We want our patient centered on the board. If you look right now, the patient's off center of the board a little bit. So we're going to do here real quick on heads count. We're just going to scooch straight to me about an inch to square her up on the board.
All right, 1, 2, 3.
Perfect. Okay, we've got our gurney right here. We're going to go ahead. Perfect. Go around to the other side. Work your way just like that. Okay. Call it head.
All right, 1, 2, 3.
Nice and easy. Up we go. Onto the gurney. When we go to the gurney, we're going to actually hang the head off the edge of the gurney. Keep going. There we go.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to want the shoulders right in line with the edge of the backboard. That way, the patient's sitting here, patient's stable. We can go ahead and do a pelvic sling. We can strap the patient into the board. Right now, I can throw a headbed tape on super easy, so we can get the patient all strapped into the board, headbed tape on. Once all that's done, then we go ahead, square the board up on the gurney, strap it into the gurney, and away we go. Now you've seen how quickly we can do the extrication, let's talk about why we care about that. So we have a duty to our patients that we're responding on. The duty being to get them out quickly. The quicker we get our patients out, the better their survival rate is. From there, look at our on-scene time. The longer we're on scene means we're out of service. If we're out of service, who's handling the secondary calls that come up? We're bringing in mutual aid companies, we're bringing in other departments. Who's going to handle their calls? If we can get done quicker on scene, we're going to get the patient out and get them going, which is best for them. From there, the quicker we get done on scene, we're going to get ourselves wrapped up and back available for those next calls. So overall, for the health of the system, that's what we're shooting for.